6 months had passed since the Battle of Abyss Prime. The galaxy was different now. Everyone knew what happened. The Vrathan collective, which had terrorized spacefaring species for 1,000 years, had been defeated by the humans. On Earth, Grand Admiral Han Deho walked through the government hall. He was tired. The battle had aged him. He had seen so many people die, so many ships destroyed. The victory felt heavy, not joyous. President Lee Tajan met him at the door. "Grand Admiral, welcome home." "Thank you, Mr. President," Han replied. "Is everything ready?" "It is. The survivors are waiting." They walked together to the memorial station that orbited Verdant 7. The planet below was slowly healing. Grass was growing again. Trees were being planted. People were returning to rebuild what the Vrathan had destroyed. The memorial was a massive ring of black stone. On every surface, names were carved. 4,160,000 names. Every single person who died when New Haven fell. The carving had taken 6 months to complete, but now it was done. Governor Kim Bora stood at the entrance to the memorial. She had survived the attack by being off-world during the assault. Now she had returned to lead the rebuilding effort. "Admiral Han," she said, greeting him warmly. "Thank you for coming." "I had to be here," Han said. He looked at the wall of names. "They deserve to be remembered." "They will be," Bora promised. "Every year on this day we will gather here. We will speak their names. We will make sure nobody forgets what happened." Han walked along the memorial looking at the names. He found his brother's name and placed his hand on it. The stone was warm from the sunlight reflecting off Verdant 7. "We did it," Han whispered. "The Vrathan will never hurt anyone again. I wish you were here to see it." Captain Seo Jinho was at the memorial too. His daughter was with him now. She held his hand tightly as they looked at the names. She was wearing his military jacket even though it was too big for her. "Daddy, why are there so many names?" she asked. "Because a lot of people died here," Jinho said gently. "Bad aliens attacked this place. Good people tried to save everyone, but they couldn't save them all." "But you stopped the bad aliens, right?" "Yes, we stopped them. They can't hurt anyone anymore." His daughter hugged him. "I'm glad you came home." Jinho picked her up and held her close. "Me too, sweetheart." "Me too." Commander Oh Hee-jin stood alone at a different part of the memorial. She was looking at the children's section. 30 names were highlighted in bright light, the names tattooed on her arm. She had come to pay her respects. A woman approached her. She was one of the survivors, someone who had escaped on the transports. "Commander Oh," the woman said, "I wanted to thank you. My daughter survived because you and your squadron destroyed that world ship. The Wraithen ships chasing our transport lost coordination. We escaped because of you." Heejin looked at the woman, then at the memorial. "I'm sorry I couldn't save more." "You saved who you could," the woman said. "That's all anyone can ask." After she left, Heejin touched the names on her arm. "I didn't forget you," she said quietly. "I never will." Far across the galaxy, on the Vrathan homeworld, things were very different. The Vrathan who survived were trying to understand what happened. The hive-mind connection had been severed by a quantum virus that Dr. Choi Min-seo had developed. For the first time in their history, individual Vrathan had to think for themselves. It was confusing. It was frightening. But some Vrathan were discovering it could also be liberating. A Vrathan named Kresh stood in the ruins of the capital city. Around him, human soldiers were helping rebuild. This confused him. The humans had won the battle. Why were they helping their enemies? "Why do you help us?" Kresh asked a human engineer. The engineer looked up from his work. "Because the war is over. You surrendered. Now we help you become better. We destroyed your colony. We killed your people." "Yes," the engineer said. "And we broke your fleet. We defeated your military, but we're not going to kill everyone just because we can. That would make us as bad as you were. We're giving you a chance to change." Kresh thought about this. It was a strange concept. The old Vrathan collective would have never shown mercy. But maybe that was why they lost. On Earth, the Galactic Concordat was being formed. 17 species that had been liberated from Vrathan control gathered to create a new alliance. Ambassador Kang Eunji was elected as the first Secretary General. "We gather today to ensure what happened to New Haven never happens again," Eunji said at the opening ceremony. "No species should live in fear of being destroyed. No civilization should have to face extinction alone. Together we are stronger." Representatives from dozens of species applauded. The Concordat would share technology, coordinate defenses, and help each other grow. It was the beginning of a new era for the galaxy. Back at the memorial station, the ceremony was ending. President Lee Taijin gave the closing speech. "The people who died here didn't die in vain," Lee said. "Their sacrifice reminded us what we're capable of when we work together. It showed us that humanity will never abandon its own, and it proved to the galaxy that there are some lines that cannot be crossed." He looked at the memorial wall. "We remember New Haven not with sadness alone, but with determination. We will build more colonies. We will explore more worlds. We will reach out to other species in friendship. But if anyone threatens us, if anyone tries to harm innocent people, they will learn what New Haven taught us. Humanity protects its own." After the ceremony, Han stood alone at the observation window. He watched as ships came and went from New Haven, supply vessels bringing construction materials, transports carrying new settlers, science ships studying the recovering ecosystem. Lieutenant Quan Jiwoo found him there. She had been promoted to commander and assigned to the defense fleet that would permanently guard New Haven. "It's strange," Quan said. 6 months ago this place was dead. Now look at it. People are coming back. They're rebuilding. They're not letting the Vrathan win. That's humanity," Han said. "We're stubborn like that. We don't give up." "What will you do now, sir?" Quan asked. "I don't know," Han admitted. "I've been fighting for so long, I'm not sure what peace looks like anymore." "You could help rebuild," Quan suggested. "Not just New Haven, but all the colonies. Make sure they're protected. Make sure what happened here never happens again." Han thought about that. It was a good idea. The war was over, but the work wasn't done. There were defenses to build, alliances to strengthen, peace to maintain. "Maybe I will," Han said. "Maybe that's what all of us should do. Turn our victory into something lasting." In the orbital space above New Haven, 70,000 warships kept watch. It was a permanent defense fleet, always ready. Never again would a human colony be caught unprepared. Never again would the Vrathan or anyone like them be able to destroy a world without facing consequences. The memorial station slowly rotated, catching the sunlight. The names on the walls glowed softly. 4,160,000 people who would never be forgotten. A young girl, one of the new settlers, stood with her parents looking at the memorial. "What is this place?" she asked. "It's a reminder," her father said. "A reminder of what we lost and what we're fighting to protect. This is why we have the fleet. This is why we work together, so that what happened here never happens anywhere else." The girl looked up at the warships in orbit. They seemed so powerful, so permanent. "Will we always be safe now?" Her father knelt down and hugged her. "We'll do everything we can to keep you safe." "That's a promise." Grand Admiral Han watched the family from a distance. He smiled, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The future wasn't certain, but humanity would face it together. Stronger than before, more united than ever. The Vrathan had tried to break humanity by destroying New Haven. Instead, they had created something new. They had forced humanity to show the galaxy what it was truly capable of. And in doing so, they had changed everything. The age of fear was over. The age of the Concordat had begun. And at its heart was a simple truth. Humanity would never abandon its people. Never again would they be unprepared. Never again would they let innocents die without responding with everything they had. The memorial turned slowly in orbit, an eternal reminder carved in stone. New Haven had fallen, but from its ashes a stronger humanity had risen, and the galaxy would never be the same. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Abyss system. 700,000 ships appeared in space where there had been nothing moments before. The sight was overwhelming. On the command bridge of his flagship, Grand Admiral Han Daeho watched his tactical displays. 6 Vrathan worlds orbited a binary star in the center of the system. Massive space stations hung in orbit around each planet. Defense platforms bristled with weapons, and everywhere Vrathan ships moved through space. "Enemy contact," reported Lieutenant Quan Jiwoo. "Detecting 80,000 Vrathan warships. They're moving to intercept positions." "Good," Han said calmly. "Let them come." On the largest Vrathan world ship, the Hive Queen received the reports. Her consciousness touched thousands of Vrathan minds across the fleet. She studied the human ships and felt something she hadn't felt in centuries. Surprise? They came to attack us? The Hive Queen thought to her fleet. These inferior creatures came to our home system?
Send them a message.
Tell them to submit or be harvested. The message reached Han's flagship. He read it and laughed bitterly. Submit to harvesting. Is that what they told New Haven? He opened a channel to the Vrathan. You destroyed our home. Now we destroy yours. All ships, Han ordered. Fire on my mark. Across the human fleet, weapon systems powered up. 200,000 battlecruisers turned their plasma lance batteries toward the enemy. The air hummed with building energy. Mark. 200,000 plasma lances fired at the same instant. The combined light was so bright it could be seen from the neighboring star system. Beams of superheated plasma crossed the space between the fleets in seconds. The Vrathan shields were strong. They had protected the Vrathan for 1,000 years. But they were designed to fight enemies that attacked with dozens of ships, maybe hundreds. They were not designed for 200,000 simultaneous strikes. The shields collapsed. 30,000 Vrathan ships were crippled in the first 60 seconds of battle. Hulls melted. Reactors exploded. Ships that had seemed invincible moments ago became drifting wreckage. The Vrathan Hive Queen felt the deaths of her ships through the mental link. Pain flooded through her mind, confusion. How was this possible? These humans were supposed to be weak. All ships attack, the Hive Queen commanded. Destroy them all. The remaining 50,000 Vrathan warships surged forward. Their bioenergy weapons fired, sending beams of purple energy toward the human fleet. The beams could dissolve matter at the molecular level. When they hit human ships, the results were devastating. We're taking heavy fire, Captain Seo Jinho reported from the Indomitable Will. His ship shook as a beam struck their forward shields. Shields at 60%. Port weapons offline. Keep firing, Jinho ordered. Around him, his crew worked frantically to keep the ship in the fight. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Nam Dong-hyun was performing miracles, rerouting power, fixing damaged systems, keeping the weapons online. I need more power to the shields, Jinho called down to engineering. I'm giving you everything I have, Dong-hyun replied. If you want more, come down here and peddle. The space between the two fleets became a nightmare. Ships exploded every second. Debris filled the space. Energy beams crossed back and forth like deadly lightning. The battle was so intense that both sides' sensors were overwhelmed. Commander Oh Hyojin launched from her carrier with her fighter squadron. 50,000 human fighters poured into the battle space. They were small and fast, darting between the massive capital ships. All fighters, stay with me, Hyojin ordered. We're going for the big one. The big one was the Vrathan Hive Queen's world ship. It was 5 miles long, covered in weapons, and protected by a shield that could withstand almost anything. Almost. Hyojin's plan was simple. Fighters would get in close where the big ships couldn't target them. They would hit the world ship's reactor with concentrated fire. If they could overload it, the ship would explode. This is going to be rough, Hyojin told her pilots. Stay tight. Watch each other's backs. And remember why we're here. She looked at the tattoo on her arm. 30 names. 30 children from New Haven. The fighters dove toward the world ship. Wraithen point defense weapons opened fire immediately. The space around them filled with energy bolts. Fighters exploded on every side. Pilots who Hyojin had trained with, eaten with, laughed with, they died in flashes of light. Keep going, Hyojin shouted. Don't stop. The fighters reached the world ship's hull. They flew along its surface, dodging weapons towers, searching for the reactor access points. There, Hyojin spotted them. 4 large ports that vented heat from the main reactor. Target those ports. Maximum firepower. 200 fighters concentrated their fire on the ports. The shots punched through the vents and struck the reactor containment inside. Warning alarms screamed throughout the world ship. The Hive Queen felt the reactor destabilizing. She tried to shut it down, but it was too late. The containment was breached. The fusion reaction was going out of control. Abandon ship, the Hive Queen commanded to her crew. But there wasn't time. The world ship exploded. The fusion reactor went critical, releasing energy equivalent to a small star. The explosion was so massive it destroyed 5,000 Vrathan escort ships that were nearby. The shockwave knocked fighters tumbling through space. Hyojin's fighter was thrown backwards by the blast. Her controls sparked and failed. She was spinning out of control, systems failing. But she was alive. And the world ship was gone. Commander Oh, are you okay? One of her pilots asked. I'm alive, Hyojin replied, fighting to regain control of her fighter. How many did we lose? 70% casualties, ma'am. 70%. Almost her entire squadron. Hyojin closed her eyes for a moment. Then she opened them and got back to work. Return to carrier for repairs. We're not done yet. With the world ship destroyed, the Vrathan fleet began to lose coordination. The Hive Queen had survived by escaping in a small shuttle, but she no longer had direct control of all her ships. The Vrathan captains had to think for themselves, something they weren't trained to do. Grand Admiral Han saw the opportunity. All ships full assault. Drive them back to their planets! The human fleet pushed forward. The Vrathan fought desperately, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. One by one, their ships fell. Some tried to retreat to the orbital stations. Others attempted to escape the system entirely. The human fleet hunted them all. Prepare for orbital assault, Han ordered. We're taking their homeworld. Sergeant An Ji-hun and 2 million Marines loaded into drop pods. The pods were small, armored capsules that would carry them through the atmosphere to the planet's surface. It was the most dangerous way to land on a hostile world, but it was also the fastest. Remember your training, Ji-hun told his troops. The Vrathan are tough, but we're tougher. We're fighting for everyone who died on New Haven. Make them count. The drop pods launched. They fell through space like rain, thousands of them, heading toward the Vrathan capital world. The Vrathan fired everything they had at the pods. Many were destroyed before they reached the ground. But most made it through. Ji-hun's pod hit the surface hard. The impact knocked the breath out of him. Then the door blew open and he rolled out, rifle ready. Around him, other Marines were emerging from their pods. The Vrathan were waiting. They attacked in waves, using claws and bioweapons. But the Marines held their ground. They had trained for this. They were ready. The battle for the surface lasted for hours. The Vrathan fought fiercely, defending their home. But slowly, steadily, the Marines pushed them back. Building by building, street by street, the humans advanced. In orbit, the space battle was ending. The Vrathan fleet was broken. Thousands of destroyed ships drifted in space. The survivors were surrendering, transmitting a signal they had never sent before. We yield. We surrender. Grand Admiral Han received the surrender with grim satisfaction. The cost had been terrible. 180,000 human ships destroyed. 94 million dead. But they had won. The Vrathan collective was broken forever. The Chronos system was far from any inhabited world. It was chosen for that reason. Here, hidden among the asteroids and gas clouds, humanity had built its secret shipyards. Now, 3 months after New Haven's fall, those shipyards were emptying. Ships arrived by the thousands. They came from every corner of human space. Battlecruisers fresh from the construction yards. Destroyers with newly installed weapons. Carriers loaded with fighter craft. The gathering was unlike anything humanity had ever created. Captain Seo Jinho stood on the bridge of his battlecruiser. The indomitable will. Through the viewing screens, he could see ships stretching in every direction. Tens of thousands of them, hundreds of thousands, all preparing for war. I've never seen so many ships in one place, Yim said, his first officer. Nobody has, Jinho replied. This is the largest fleet in human history. Maybe the largest fleet in galactic history. Jinho thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was 7 years old. He had recorded a message for her before leaving, just in case he didn't come back. In the message, he tried to explain why he had to go, why this was important. He wasn't sure a 7-year-old would understand, but he hoped someday she would. Nearby, Commander Oh Hyejin was drilling her fighter squadron for the 100th time. Her fighter launched from the carrier and joined the formation. Around her, 200 other fighters moved into position. Listen up, Hyejin said over the radio. We're practicing the hammer strike pattern. Stay tight, watch your spacing, and for the love of Earth, don't crash into each other. The fighters dove toward a simulated target, a holographic projection of a Vrathan warship. They came in from multiple angles, firing practice shots. The simulation showed the enemy ship's shields collapsing under the coordinated assault. Better, Hyejin said, but not good enough. Again, her squadron groaned but turned around for another run. Hyejin didn't care if they were tired. When they faced real Vrathan ships, there would be no second chances. They had to be perfect. On Hyejin's arm was a new tattoo. It showed a list of names, 30 names of children who died on New Haven. She had chosen them randomly from the memorial list. Whenever she felt tired, whenever she wanted to quit, she looked at those names. Then she kept going. Deep in the engineering section of the flagship, Chief Engineer Nam Dong-hyun was making final adjustments to the new weapons. The plasma lance batteries were his design. They could fire beams of superheated plasma that could cut through almost any shield. Run the test again, Dong-hyun ordered his team. The weapon charged up. Energy readings climbed higher and higher. Then the lance fired. A beam of brilliant blue plasma shot across the test range and struck a target made of reinforced steel. The steel didn't just melt. It vaporized instantly. Donghyun smiled. Good. Now we just need to make sure it doesn't overload and explode when we fire it in combat. That would be nice, one of his engineers said dryly. Meanwhile, in the intelligence section, Dr. Choi Min-seo was studying every piece of information they had about the Vrathan. She was a xenopsychologist, someone who studied how aliens think. Understanding the enemy was the key to defeating them. They're a hive mind, Choi explained to a group of officers. They think differently than we do. They have no concept of individual rights or individual value. To them, the destruction of New Haven wasn't murder. It was just removing obstacles. So they're monsters, one officer said. No, Choi replied. They're aliens. They're so different from us that they can't understand why we're angry. They think we should just accept what happened and move on. That's why they're not preparing for a major counterattack. They think we'll just defend our remaining colonies and leave them alone. Then we'll surprise them, Grand Admiral Han Daeho said from the doorway. He walked into the room. Do you have the location of their homeworld yet? Choi nodded. We captured a damaged Vrathan scout ship last month. We extracted data from its navigation computer. The Vrathan home cluster is in the Abyss sector, about 400 light-years from Earth. 6 heavily populated worlds, maybe 50 billion Vrathan total. 50 billion, someone whispered. And they killed 4 million of us without hesitation, Han said. We're not going there to exterminate them. We're going there to break their military power forever. We're going to make sure they can never attack another species again. Down in the Marine section, Sergeant An Jihyun was training his troops for boarding actions. If they needed to take control of Vrathan ships or facilities, the Marines would lead the way. Remember, Jihyun told his soldiers, the Vrathan are stronger than humans physically. They're faster. They have natural weapons, claws, thick skin, poison. You can't beat them in hand-to-hand combat. He held up a plasma rifle. So you don't fight them hand-to-hand. You use your weapons. You use your training. You use your squad. Marines work together. That's our advantage. The Marines practiced breaching techniques, room-clearing tactics, and zero-gravity combat. They trained until they could do it in their sleep. Because when the real fighting started, they might have to do it while exhausted, injured, and terrified. Lieutenant Kwon Ji-woo had been assigned to Grand Admiral Han's flagship as a senior communications officer. She worked 20-hour days, making sure all 700,000 ships could communicate with each other. It was a massive task. One night she was running tests when she noticed Admiral Han sitting alone in the observation lounge. He was staring out at the assembled fleet. Sir, she said quietly, can I get you anything? No thank you, Lieutenant, Han replied. I'm just thinking. About the battle ahead? About the people we've already lost, Han said. About New Haven, about my brother. About Dr. Yuna and Captain Minho and all the others. We're building this massive fleet preparing for this huge battle, but it won't bring them back. Kwon sat down near him. No, sir. It won't, but it might save the next colony. It might save millions of people who would die if we don't stop the Vrathan. That's what I keep telling myself, Han said. He looked at her. How do you do it? How do you keep going after losing everything? I remember why Captain Minho stayed behind, Kwon said. He stayed so 40,000 people could escape. He traded his life for theirs. If I give up now, I'm saying his sacrifice meant nothing. I won't do that. I'll keep fighting until the Vrathan can't hurt anyone else. Han nodded slowly. You're wise for someone so young. I'm not that young anymore, sir, Kwon said. New Haven made sure of that. The days passed. The fleet continued to gather and train. Crews that had never worked together learned to coordinate. Weapons that had never been fired in combat were tested again and again. Strategies were planned, discussed, and revised. Finally, after 3 months of preparation, Grand Admiral Han stood before his fleet. His image was broadcast to all 700,000 ships. People of Earth, soldiers of humanity, Han said. Today we depart for the Abyss sector. We go to face an enemy that thinks we're weak. An enemy that thinks destroying one colony would make us afraid. An enemy that doesn't understand what they've awakened. He paused, letting his words sink in. We don't go for revenge. We go for justice. We go to make sure no other species suffers what New Haven suffered. We go to show the galaxy that humanity protects its own, and if anyone tries to harm us, we will respond with everything we have. The fleet activated their faster-than-light drives. 700,000 ships disappeared from the Chronos system in a flash of light. The energy signature was so massive that it could be detected across half the galaxy. The Great Retribution fleet was on its way. The Vrathan had no idea what was coming. The emergency meeting room was packed with people. President Lee Tajan sat at the head of the long table, his face grave. Around him sat the most powerful people in human space: military commanders, government officials, intelligence officers. Everyone looked tired. Everyone looked angry. Fleet Admiral Yoon Ha-jun stood up to speak. He was an old man with gray hair and hard eyes. He had fought in 3 wars. He had never seen anything like New Haven. "The death toll is confirmed," Yoon said. 4,160,000 dead. 40,000 survivors, that's less than 1%. He paused. The Vrathan gave no warning. They accepted no communication. They simply killed everyone they could reach. Director Shin Nari activated a holographic display. Images of alien ships appeared above the table. "This is what we know about the Vrathan Collective," she said. "They are a hive mind species. They have destroyed 17 civilizations in the past 1,000 years. They view other species as resources to be harvested. They don't negotiate, they don't trade. They only consume and expand." Ambassador Kang Yoonji spoke next. Her voice was bitter. "I met the Vrathan 15 years ago. I was part of a diplomatic mission to the Quelon homeworld. The Quelon were a peaceful species. They had art, music, families. Then the Vrathan came." She looked around the table. "The Vrathan killed every single Quelon. 3 billion people. Gone. I barely escaped with my life." "Why didn't we know about this?" someone asked. "We did know," Shin replied. "The information was classified. The Vrathan were far from human space. We thought we had time to prepare. We were wrong." General Baek Sunwoo slammed his fist on the table. "So what do we do now? Build more defenses? Wait for them to attack another colony? How many more worlds will die while we hide behind our walls?" The room erupted in argument. Some people wanted to strengthen defenses around major colonies. Others wanted to send diplomats to try to negotiate. A few suggested abandoning the outer colonies entirely and pulling everyone back to the core worlds. President Lee Tajan listened to all of it. He said nothing. His eyes were closed and he was thinking. Finally, he raised his hand. The room fell silent. "I've heard enough," Lee said quietly. He stood up and looked at each person in the room. "The Vrathan think we're weak. They think one destroyed colony will make us afraid. They think we'll run away and give them whatever they want." He walked to the window and looked out at the city below. "They're wrong. We're not running. We're not hiding. We're not negotiating with murderers." Lee turned back to the room. "Fleet Admiral Yoon, tell them about Project Hammer." Yoon smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Project Hammer has been running for 20 years. We built it in secret after we learned about the Vrathan. Hidden shipyards and remote systems, automated factories. We've been preparing for this day." Another holographic display appeared. It showed hundreds of thousands of ships, battlecruisers, destroyers, carriers, support vessels. The image seemed to go on forever. 700,000 warships, Yoon said. 400 million personnel, the largest military fleet in human history. We kept it secret because we didn't want to start a panic. Now it's time to use it. The room was silent. People stared at the display with wide eyes. "You built an entire war fleet in secret?" someone asked. "We built an entire war fleet to protect humanity," Yoon replied. "And now we're going to use it to make sure the Vrathan never kill another human being." President Lee Tajan activated the broadcast system. His face appeared on screens across all 300 human worlds. Billions of people stopped what they were doing to watch. "Citizens of Earth and all human colonies," Lee began. "1 week ago, the colony of New Haven was destroyed by an alien species called the Vrathan. 4 million of our people were murdered without warning, without mercy, without reason. They killed men, women, and children. They destroyed everything we built there. They left nothing but ash. He paused, letting the words sink in. The Vrathan did this because they think we're weak. They think we'll accept this. They think we'll give them whatever they want if they just kill enough of us. Lee's voice became hard as steel. They're wrong. No more colonies will fall. No more families will be destroyed. No more worlds will burn. Today, I am authorizing the deployment of our entire military fleet, 700,000 ships, 400 million of our best men and women. We're going to find the Vrathan homeworld. We're going to end this threat forever. Back in the meeting room, Admiral Han Daiho sat quietly. He had been promoted that morning to Grand Admiral. President Lee had given him command of the first Retribution Fleet, 200,000 ships. His mission was simple: find the Vrathan and make them pay. Grand Admiral Han, President Lee said, "Do you accept this command?" Han stood up. He thought about his brother. He thought about Dr. Yuna's final message. He thought about 4 million dead. "I accept," Han said. "The Vrathan wanted a war. We'll give them one they'll never forget." After the meeting, Han walked alone to the memorial center. Workers were building a new wall, a long black wall of stone. On it, they were carving names. All the names from New Haven, 4,160,000 names. It would take months to finish. Han found his brother's name near the top. He placed his hand on it. The stone was cold. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you," Han said quietly. "But I promise you this. I'll make them pay. Every single one of them will pay for what they did." A young woman approached him. She was one of the survivors from New Haven. Han recognized her from the reports. Lieutenant Quan Jiwoo, the communications officer who had escaped Captain Minho's ship. "Grand Admiral," she said, saluting, "I want to volunteer for your fleet." "You've been through enough," Han said. "You don't have to fight." "Yes, I do," Quan replied. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. "Captain Minho died buying time for people to escape. Dr. Yuna died sending a warning. My friends, my family, everyone I knew on New Haven died. I need to do this. I need to make sure they didn't die for nothing." Han looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Report to the flagship tomorrow morning. We leave in 3 months." Quan saluted again and walked away. Han turned back to the memorial wall. Soon, workers would finish carving all the names. Soon, the entire human species would know what was lost. And soon, the Vrathan would learn what it meant to make humanity angry. In the darkness of space far from Earth, the Vrathan fleet moved toward their next target. They had chosen another human colony to attack. They expected an easy victory. They expected the humans to run away in fear. They had no idea what was coming. They had no idea that 700,000 warships were being prepared. They had no idea that humanity had decided to strike back with everything they had. The Vrathan had destroyed one human world. Now humanity would destroy their entire civilization. The countdown had begun. Captain Cho Minho stood on the bridge of his patrol ship, the Vigilant Dawn. He stared at the screens in front of him, watching the stars of the Verdant system. Everything looked normal. Everything felt wrong. "Sir, I'm picking up strange readings," said Lieutenant Quan Jiwoo from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "Something is disturbing space near the edge of the system." Minho walked over to her station. He looked at the data. His stomach dropped. Those readings meant only one thing. Something big was coming. Something very big. "Send a warning to New Haven Colony," Minho ordered. "Tell them we have unknown contacts approaching. Tell them to raise their shields," and the space in front of them tore open. Massive ships appeared, dozens of them, then hundreds. They were unlike anything Minho had ever seen. The ships were black and covered in sharp edges. They looked like predators made of metal. "Contact the fleet," Minho shouted. "We need reinforcements now." But it was too late. The alien ships opened fire. Bright beams of energy shot across space. New Haven's orbital defense stations exploded one by one. Each explosion was a flash of light, then nothing. Millions of tons of metal turned to dust in seconds. On the surface of New Haven, Governor Kim Bora felt the ground shake. She ran to the window of her office. In the sky above, she could see fire. The defense stations were dying. Her hand shook as she reached for the emergency communicator. "This is Governor Kim," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "All citizens must evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Get to the transports now. Take only what you can carry. Go, go, go." In the medical center on the east side of the capital city, Dr. Park Yuna heard the alarms. She was in the middle of examining a patient, a young girl with a broken arm. The girl looked up at her with frightened eyes. "It's okay," Yuna said softly, even though her heart was pounding. "We're going to be fine." But Yuna knew they might not be fine. She had studied alien species for years. She knew about the Vrathan. She had read the classified reports about what they did to other worlds. They didn't conquer. They destroyed. They harvested everything and left nothing behind. Captain Minho's ship shook as enemy fire hit their shields. The shields were dropping fast. Around him, his crew worked desperately to return fire, but their weapons barely scratched the enemy ships. "Sir, we can't win this fight," said his weapons officer. "We need to retreat." Minho looked at the tactical display. He could see the civilian transports trying to escape from New Haven. They were slow, defenseless. If his ship ran away, those transports would be destroyed. 4 million people lived on New Haven. Maybe 40,000 could escape if someone bought them time. "Set ramming course for the lead enemy ship," Minho said quietly. His crew turned to look at him. Lieutenant Quan Jiwoo's eyes were wide. "Sir, I know what it is," Minho said. He smiled at his crew. "It's been an honor serving with all of you. Now get to the escape pods. That's an order." "We're not leaving you," Quan said. "Yes, you are," Minho replied. "Someone needs to tell Earth what happened here. Go. Tell them the Vrathan came. Tell them we need help." His crew didn't move. Minho's voice became hard. "I said go." "That's a direct order." One by one, his crew abandoned their stations and ran for the escape pods. Minho sat down in the captain's chair. He pushed the engines to maximum power. The Vigilant Dawn accelerated toward the largest enemy ship. On the planet below, the alien bombardment had begun. Dr. Yuna grabbed the young girl and ran. Outside, the sky was falling. Beams of purple energy rained down from orbit. Where they touched the ground, everything died. Buildings melted. Trees turned to ash. People simply vanished. Yuna ran toward the transport station carrying the crying girl. Around her, thousands of people were running, screaming, trying to escape. A transport ship was lifting off, its engines roaring. Yuna pushed through the crowd and threw the girl toward the open ramp. Someone inside caught her. The ramp closed. The ship rose into the sky. Yuna smiled. At least the child would survive. She turned back to help others, but then the world turned white. The bombardment beam hit 3 blocks away. The shockwave threw Yuna through the air. She hit the ground hard. Everything hurt. She couldn't move her legs. Blood covered her hands. In the distance, she could see the communications tower still standing. If she could reach it, she could send a message. She could warn others. Yuna crawled. Every movement was agony, but she crawled. Her fingers dug into the dirt. She pulled herself forward inch by inch. Behind her, the city burned. The screams were fading. There were fewer people left to scream. She reached the tower's emergency terminal. With bloody fingers, she activated it. The screen flickered to life. "This is Dr. Park Yuna of New Haven Colony," she gasped into the recorder. "We are under attack by the Vrathan. They showed no mercy. They gave no warning. 4 million people lived here. Now there is nothing. Please, don't let this happen to other worlds. Please, remember us." The screen went dark. The tower was losing power. Yuna leaned back against the wall. She looked up at the sky. The alien ships were still up there, still firing, still destroying everything she had ever known. In space, Captain Minho's ship slammed into the enemy vessel. The collision was tremendous. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. The shockwave disabled 2 more enemy ships. The civilian transports used that moment to jump to faster-than-light speed. 40,000 people escaped. Only 40,000. The Vrathan finished their work. It took them 6 hours to reduce New Haven to ash. When they were done, they left a message beacon floating in space. The message was simple. "This territory is ours now. Leave or die." The alien fleet moved on to their next target. Behind them, Verdant 7 burned. The forests that had given the planet its name were gone. The cities were rubble. The people were dead. 4,160,000 souls had lived on New Haven that morning. Now there were only ghosts and memories. 1 week later, Admiral Han Deho received the distress beacon. He sat in his office at Fleet Headquarters and watched Dr. Yuna's final message. He watched it 3 times. His hands clenched into fists. His brother had been stationed on New Haven. His brother was dead now. Dead with millions of others. Han stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at Earth below, blue and peaceful. How many people down there didn't know yet? How many families were about to learn their loved ones were gone? Never again, Han whispered. I swear it. Never again. He turned back to his desk and began writing his report to the Terran command. The Vrethan had made a terrible mistake. They thought destroying one colony would make humanity afraid. They were wrong. They had just awakened something they didn't understand. They had awakened humanity's rage.